How's it going? My name is Jess and this is Reasoned. Today I'm joined by Lee Anderson, the MP for Ashfield, who was voted Backbencher of the Year, and we will be discussing how the Conservative Party is doing and what its strategy should be going forward. Hi Lee, thank you so much for joining me on today's Reasoned episode. So the first question that I want to ask is, what is your New Year's resolution for the Tory party?
Well, my own personal resolution is to still be here this time next year. But I guess the resolution for the Tory party is to become more Tory this year. That would do it for me. If we can do that and get back on track and try and be a Conservative party again and a Conservative government, I think that will put us in a good place in 2024.
What does it mean to be Conservative, do you think?
For me, I think the main thing for me and for my colleagues and for anybody who is a Conservative is aspiration. It's being able to live in a country where we can all achieve whatever we want to achieve if we put the work in, if we put the graft in. And I think we still are that country. You know, I see colleagues and business people every single week who's doing incredibly well in this country. And that's through hard work. It's not through luck. It's through hard work. It's through education. It's through training. It's through taking a few risks now and again. And it's just sheer hard work, working 18, 20-hour days, opening their businesses, running their businesses, recruiting local people. And that's it for me. It's aspiration. And that drives everything. And that's what a true Conservative believes in.
So, you were voted Backbencher of the Year, I believe. Why do you think that was?
Well, that's a good question. To be honest, Jess, I didn't even know that award existed. I mean, last year I got voted the worst man in Britain by the Daily Mirror.
Really?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I don't know who voted in that. Probably just the staff that work for the Daily Mirror. But yeah, it's high praise from my colleagues because it's members, I believe, that actually vote in it. So yeah, for a backbencher to be recognised, for members to know who I actually am in Parliament, that's a great honour. So I must be saying and doing something that resonates with the membership.
So, back on the Tory party in general, what do you think the Tory party did wrong last year in terms of. So, we had Boris Johnson, right? And I think he really resonated with the previous Red Wall seats, with the North, who put their faith in the Tory party. And then we've seen such a change in leadership since then, whether it be through Liz Truss and then now Rishi Sunak. So, what do you think about this transition? Do you think it's a good thing? And do you think we need to return to some principles that we had in 2019? Because I don't see the same enthusiasm.
Well, I think we need some stability, Jess. And last year we wasn't stable at all. And people, when you talk about Conservative Party or Conservative government, they normally see stability. But to have three leaders in as many months is not stable. Now we've got Rishi in charge. He's sort of making the right noises. He's saying the things that I want to hear, and he's saying the things that my constituents want to hear. Well, he's getting tough on immigration and stuff like that. So I think it's stability what we need. We need a bit of boring. It wasn't boring with Boris, and certainly wasn't boring with Liz in charge. Although I think they were good people and they're good friends. But you know what? We need stability. That's what this country wants. We don't want to be at the first news item every night on the 6 o'clock news. We don't want to be on the front page every single day about one scandal. Or it was like a soap opera last year was, and that's not good. It's not good for British politics. I think what most people want to do when they go and vote at a general election is put their cross in a box and go away and forget about politics for 5 years and let the so-called experts get on with running the country. Well, that's not been the case always over the past few years. It's become a soap opera. But now it's back to boring, I think. Hopefully if we get the strikes sorted out and get the economy sorted, start growing, then become a party of low taxation, a proper Conservative party, then I think, the soft voters, the ones that are grumpy with us at the moment, they may look at us and think, you know what, they've got the act together. We've got to give them a chance again.
I mean, do you think the Conservative Party can get its act together? After all, we've seen with high immigration levels, both illegal and legal, plus a rising crime, plus housing crisis, the economy is in an absolute state. Do you think the Conservative Party can get it done?
Well, they can. Whether we do or not, Jess, is a completely different kettle of fish. Look, there's the will there, certainly on the backbenchers. I think we've got to start paying less attention to the opposition and to the people that never vote for us and get on. Be a bit like Maggie was back in the 80s. She just stuck to a plan. She knew she was right, and she was right. And I didn't agree with her at the time, but she had a plan, and people knew where they stood with her. No U-turn. She didn't turn, and I think that's what this government needs to do. Is be brave, stick to a bold and brave plan, and just go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But as politicians, we also have to be risk takers as well. I believe, like businesses, we have to take risks in politics, and there's no greater risk taker than Sir Winston Churchill. And for me, he was the greatest prime minister ever in this country.
So, do you think the Conservative Party is close to that of Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher? Because I don't think a lot of the membership would agree with that idea. I think as we've seen in the past year with Liz, Boris and Rishi, especially I think with Rishi Sunak, I don't think people actually know where he stands. And I think people don't see him as someone with a vision. Personally, I think he's Boris Johnson, but with a lot less charisma. So I don't know if Rishi Sunak can be that Churchill figure or that Thatcher figure. Nor do I think that Starmer is, but I think that's another situation. So what do you think the solution is with that?
I'm not quite sure I agree with you on that, Jess. There's a couple of things that Rishi's done, which I don't think Boris would have done. One is a coal mine in Cumbria. That's been given a green light now by government, and I'm sure there was a lot of support there from Rishi. Well, I know there was. So that would have never happened under Boris. So that's something totally different. And the new legislation we've got coming in February to tackle illegal immigration, where if you arrive here illegally, then you have no chance of claiming asylum, which is what we've always wanted. A lot of us on the backbenchers, and we didn't get that before with previous prime ministers. So there is a big difference there. He's chucked the backbenchers. People like me in the red wall seats, a couple of big bones to chew on. Rishi has. We're happy with that so far. So let's see if it gets delivered. If it gets delivered, then we'll be even happier.
What do you think red wall voters care about? Because I think there's a big disconnect between Westminster and the red wall. What do you think the average person cares about in the north?
Well, they care about the culture. They care about immigration. They care about their schools. They care about their local hospitals. And basically, the red wall voters, the red wallers, I'm one of them. In areas like this, all we've ever wanted is to have a decent wage, send our kids to a decent school, have a decent hospital when it's called upon, maybe take a holiday once a year, have a bit of money in bank, and that's it, Jess. That's all we want. We don't want much, and for the main, a lot of red wallers will. That's all they ever want, and they want progress. And progress is for people like me, is my children or my grandchildren, if I ever have any, is to do a little bit better than me. Is for the next generation to do better and have more and aspire to do better. And that's what we want in these areas. They're conservative values, and traditionally we've always voted Labour in these areas, but they are true conservative values, and that's what the red wall wants: fairness, opportunity, and aspiration.
What do you think made the red wall change last election from Labour to Conservative? What do you think was that shift?
There was a mix of three main ingredients there. It was Boris, it was Brexit, and it was Corbyn, and it was simple as that. And if you look around to the red wall towns in the Midlands and the North, they've all got pretty much one thing in common, or a couple of things in common, should I say. They've always been Labour for 100 years. They've always had a Labour MP. They've always had Labour-run councils, and they're all derelict and defunct and deprived and absolutely miserable-looking places on the high street. So people are thinking, you know what, we've had 100 years of Labour. Boris has come along, Brexit's come along, we've got Corbyn who we don't particularly like. We're going to vote for change. And I think that's what people did. They voted for change.
Why don't you think that Corbyn resonated with the working class? Because we often hear with socialists that they represent the working class. So why do you think that many working class people didn't like Corbyn?
Well, for several reasons. I think it's the image portrayed through the media of him, sharing stages with certain unsavoury individuals, the sort of company he keeps. I always say you can judge a person by the friends, and it would appear that some of his friends weren't very nice people. But his policies as well, I think he'd probably want to nationalise everything, and we've been there before in the 70s and 80s. We've seen what happened there. And his reluctance to call certain things out, to be critical of his own party. There was the anti-Semitism problem. And you know what? Knocking on doors in Ashfield when I was in the Labour Party, he was absolutely toxic. People just did not like him. They didn't see him as a working class hero. And it's funny, Jess, when you think that people would sooner vote for somebody educated at Eton than this is Labour voters, by the way, they'd sooner vote for an Eton educated Prime Minister or leader of a party than the so called socialist like Jeremy Corbyn, who still waves a red flag and wears the working class cap and spends time in his allotment. But the people up here aren't swallowing that.
Who do you think holds a bigger threat to the Conservative Party, Keir Starmer or Jeremy Corbyn? Because while Keir Starmer doesn't hold that same, socialist banner on him, I still feel like maybe he presents more of a Blairite more of a respectable option to voters.
He does. I think he does. He's a little bit boring, I think, which is not always a bad thing. But I think when I ask my residents or my constituents in Ashfield, what does Keir Starmer stand for? Nobody knows. At least with Corbyn, you knew what he stood for. Really far to the left, he had these, rabid principles, but you knew what he stood for. But with Sir Keir, nobody actually really knows, and we don't actually know what the Labour Party stands for at the moment. They keep saying they're not going to reveal anything until the next election, which means to me that they haven't got a clue.
So, on the topic of immigration, which we touched on a tiny bit before, why do you think it's taken so long for the Conservative Party or any government? Because if you think about it, for every election, the electorate has voted for a party that has tried to decrease, or has said that they'd control immigration, and that's not happened. Why do you think it's taken so long?
I think because I work in a place called Westminster, Jess, and there is a bubble there. It's called the Westminster bubble, and that's MPs, that's lords, that's journalists, that's staff, that's lobbyists, that's whoever, and then they get sucked into this bubble, and it's not the real world. And I don't think some of us down there in that place actually see what's happening and how it affects our immigration, or too much immigration affects our public services, our schools, our hospitals, our doctors, our dentists, and stuff like that. And they don't see the social impact as well. Right? It affects neighbours, streets, housing, and all that sort of stuff that comes with too much immigration. But I think us down there, we devise and vote through policies that have sometimes taken the easy option. I see some colleagues saying we need more immigration to grow the economy, and I don't always agree with bringing the best and brightest from all around the world to work here, because all you're doing is brain draining other countries. You're de-skilling other countries. That's not fair on developing countries. We've got about 8 million people in our country who are economically inactive. We've got people. There's a hardcore of about 700 or 800,000 who just not go to work. That's claiming benefits. The answer lies there. The answer's within. There's enough people, I think, and I could be wrong, in this country to fill all our jobs, but we've got to find those people. And one thing Boris did say a lot when he was PM was that that talent is spread evenly, but opportunity is not. And I've always said that there is a brain surgeon on every street in this country, but it's our jobs as politicians, as school teachers, as colleges, as universities, to find these people and give them the education and training they need to do them jobs, and stop importing them from other countries, because really that's just cheating.
How do you think we can find these people? Because I think I'm 19. I've just come out of education, and it seems to me, as growing up, there are lots of young people who had potential early on. They were like the top of the class, but then as time went on, they just went to the bottom because they didn't seem to care.
Yep.
And now people who would be smarter than me, are probably smarter than me, didn't unlock that potential. How do you think we can make sure that no student is left behind, especially the ones who do have that ability?
No, it's a good point. And I always compare. I get asked this a lot, to be honest with you, and I always compare this to football. So, Premiership football clubs, or any club in the English football league, they spot potential at 5 year old. They see these young kids, girls and boys, and take them out and put them into coaching academies and spend lots of money on them and take them all the way through. And we see now we've got some great young English players that's come through this process. They've been at the clubs. They're 25-year-old and probably been at that club for 20 years. And that's how you do it. You spot the potential and you take them out of that. You don't remove them completely, but you put them into a place where you can tap into that potential and train them throughout the year. So if we can do that with footballers and sports people, we can do that with academics as well. I'm pretty sure a teacher can spot talent. There then has to be somewhere for that teacher to go. So you know what? There's young Jess here. She's going to make a great brain surgeon. We need to do something for her. If we can do that, like we do with sports people, then surely that's got to be a good thing to do.
So would you say more like a grammar school approach?
Yeah, I agree with that. Grammar schools. I mean, I was supposed to take my 11 plus back in the 70s, but a year before I was due to take it, the it was removed from the curriculum. So my year, I think, was the first year that didn't get a chance to go to grammar school. So that closed a massive door for working class boys and girls in a mining village where I'm from. So 5 years later, 6 years later, whatever it was, I was down the pit working as a coal miner with my dad and my family and my friends. Whereas if it had gone to grammar school, maybe that would have opened different doors, a different route, etc., and I had a different career. But I don't regret my career in the mines or anything like that, or the pathway to politics I've took, because probably if maybe if I'd have gone to grammar school now, looking back, I wouldn't be an MP now. I'd probably be a professional person doing a boring 9 to 5 job in a suit all day. Whereas this is completely different.
On the topic of schools, like I said, I've just come out of education and I have friends who are at university currently. And it seems that wokeness has infected our education system. I remember in citizenship, for example, we were taught about transgender issues and feminism and BLM, and we celebrated World Pronouns Day. Why is all this happening under a Conservative government?
That's a good question. Why are we pandering to these people? I don't know, Jess. I think we need to clamp down. I think the problem is we've been in power now for what 13 years nearly, but a lot of this stems back from the Blair days. I think the recruitment of certain people in high positions in the civil service, in education, in health, even in defence as well, in the army. We've got these people that's been hanging around for 20 years. Who've got all these weird ideas, which are not in the main, not they don't resonate with average people in places like Ashfield, where I represent. So we've got that. It's same in the Home Office as well. With the immigration, I'm fairly convinced that the performance of the Home Office is due to a lot of wokeness. It's due to the fact that a lot of the civil servants just don't like Conservative government, so they're as awkward as they possibly can be. The productivity is pretty rubbish. We're getting high-ranking civil servants being awarded in the honours list, which is nonsense. They shouldn't be getting any honours. They're doing a job and they get paid really well for it. If they've got any sort of decency, they'd hand them honours back, in my opinion. So I guess it's a cultural thing. There's a woke culture in public services, in our civil service, all through for the police, the army, whatever, schools, and we've got to fight back. And it's people like me and people on the back benches in the Conservative Party and our government that need to fight back on this, because it's a big thing. It's a big deal. Culture is in this country. We should never be ashamed of our culture and our history. It should be a mirror that we look at and remind ourselves of what a great country that's sometimes done things that weren't always so great, but that's our history. And every country's like that. We should never be ashamed of it.
So, what measures do you think we need to clamp down? Like, how do we clamp down on it, do you think?
Well, one thing that I would do with schools at the moment, Jess, is I'd make sure that every single school flew a Union flag in their playground. I'd have a picture of the King Charles up. I'd make them sing the national anthem every morning and every evening before they went, and instill a bit of Britishness back into these schools, because we don't do that. We tend to spend the time in schools criticising our own country, our own history, our own culture, rather than celebrating it. I think that's what we need to do: celebrate our own history, our own culture, and our own country a little bit more and more often.
How do you think we've gotten into the situation where people can't say anymore that they're proud to be British, that they don't feel represented by this country? I don't know if represented is the right word, because I think people don't know what it means to be British anymore. Why do you think we've gotten into that situation?
Laziness, apathy, whatever. It's a cultural thing as well. Like I say, we get it rammed down our throats 24/7 to certain parts of social media and the mainstream media that we're nasty people. We're not caring people. We're saying we anti-immigrant, we anti-refugee when we're not. They keep harping on about our past. They're pulling statues down. They're looking at universities, how they were funded in the past, and it's all nonsense. You know what? Every country's got its problems. Every country's got its own history and culture. You know what? I'm proud to be British. And I'm lucky to be an Englishman. I really believe that. Really, really lucky to be born in a country like this. And maybe some of these people that are so not proud to be British or question our culture and our history, maybe they should go and live in another country for a year or two and see how it is. And then if they came back, then maybe they'd be a little bit more grateful for this great country of ours.
Great. So my last question is: conser- Do you think the Conservative Party has a real chance of winning the next general election? And how, in a quick plan, do you think they should go about that?
I think we do. I think we've got 2 years to the next election. We still, I think we're about 20 points behind. We can claw that back. I'm pretty sure we can. If we sort the immigration, that's a massive one for me. Sort law and order out, these silly protesters, start locking them up and throwing away the key. Fight back on this woke stuff, the culture wars. Be proud to be British. Be strong. In government, make a decision and stick to it. No more U-turns. No pandering to footballers or anything like this. And more importantly, be on the side of business. Let's sort the tax situation out with the corporation tax, hopefully before the next election. Income tax as well. Put more money in people's pockets. That's what they want in this country. They're not asking for much. They want to keep more of the money that they've actually earned. Otherwise, they say it's pretty pointless when they're going to work all week and next door neighbour who's never done a day's work in their life rinsing benefits off the system and appear to be just as well off. If we can get that fairness back and make sure that work pays, then that'll put us in a good place.
Thank you so much, Lee, for joining me in this video, and thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, that would help out so much. I've been Jess Gill and this is Reasoned. Thank you, goodbye.